Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless, the podcast that teaches you how to live a healthier lifestyle that makes you and the planet happier. The world is changing quickly. Sometimes it feels like you can't keep up. I hear you. You want to make the world a better place, you care, but you don't know where to start. You know taking care of yourself is important, but how? I get it. I have a history of diving into a new endeavor seeking perfection and quickly feeling like I failed. Whether it was going vegan or learning how to recycle more, I wish I had guidance to keep me on track and not overwhelmed. I can't lie, the world needs your help. But it doesn't need you to be perfect. This podcast is here to help. Here we go. Today I talked to Ed and Natasha Tatton, vegan bakery owners and cookbook authors. So we have Ed and Natasha here, and I think we can distinguish between your voices pretty easily when you talk. We won't have to have you name yourselves.
Yeah, I'm the deep, croaky one.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, and I have quite a unique, easy to identify London accent that will never leave me, no matter how long I live in Canada.
You haven't gotten any like Canadian London crossover?
I have, but Canadians don't pick it up. But if I go back to the UK, then they notice words I say, like I say trash or garbage. I'll say like compost. And it's really annoying because people will just stop listening to the content of what you're saying and they'll just focus and they'll go, compost. Oh. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So the podcast is called Consciously Clueless. And I like putting people on the spot right away and saying today, right now in this moment, if it were a spectrum from clueless to conscious, where do you feel right now?
Ooh, I'm definitely more on the conscious side, but there's always more to learn, definitely. So you can never be fully conscious. If you were fully conscious, you'd probably be like in nirvana with the Buddha, wouldn't you? But in terms of sustainability and everything, more on the conscious than the clueless for sure.
Yeah, I'd put it like a high sort of 8 or 9.
Yeah.
As like Tash said, I think there's always more to learn.
Right.
But I think since going vegan, I think that elevates you. But I've always seen myself as an environmentalist and, seen the minimum that we should be doing is, recycle properly and,
Well, not even recycling, but just reducing.
Exactly. Things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of, you've mentioned sustainability and veganism in that last answer. So which one came first? Was it an interest in environmentalism and veganism? And was there one person that went for it first? And then was there an influence? So what are those origin stories for you both?
I'd say for me, I grew up in the countryside in the southeast of England and always enjoyed being outside in nature. Like we did this afternoon, go and pick wild blackberries as a kid and had a connection with seasons and fruits and vegetables and things like that. And then becoming a chef and throughout my chef training, again, sort of using seasonal produce. So I always loved like eating fresh vegetables and had quite what I thought balanced diet before I went vegan. And then I think once I became vegan, it opens your eyes, your mind, your diet to so much more and the potential of what you can have on your plate.
So what was the thing for you, Ed, that made you go vegan?
Part of it was Tash. Natasha went vegan first before me. And part of it was my health. Heart condition. Had a stent fitted in my aorta when I was 26.
Oh, wow.
Made me more conscious about sort of, the doctor put me on this like tablets for high blood pressure, things like that.
Statin. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just not very happy with that because I was only 26, 27. There's no long-term.
Feels like a life sentence almost.
Totally. And I'm just like, how is this going to affect other organs, later in, there's guys in the ward that I was in that were having the second stent fitted or pacemakers, and they were confused why I was there. They were like, wow, this is crazy. So I knew straight away, like there's certain things, dairy, it clogs our arteries. Right. So I knew, subconsciously I should be cutting down on things like that. We always ate a heavy sort of vegetarian diet anyway at home. And then when Natasha went vegan, it was just easier. It was like, she was like, I don't want any animal products at home. And I always, obviously I'm going to respect her decision. So I was happy with that and saw it in the beginning stages of, if we all only ate meat once a week, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in.
Right.
Then the more you learn and the more sort of, animal welfare, I always called myself an animal lover. And I'm like, how can you call yourself an animal lover if you're killing an animal and having it on your plate? So very quickly, I'd say within a year, it was kind of a easy decision for me to make, to cut all animal products out of my diet.
It was like all the things were kind of pointing you that direction.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. In my sort of social life, the more documentaries you see, that it kind of blew up. 2016 was 2015, 2016 was like, I think a lot of people went vegan in those sort of, in that time frame from all the amazing documentaries that came out. And the more you learn, you almost you don't need to see that sort of stuff anymore. You're like,
right.
So, but yeah, Natasha's story is a little bit different, but definitely she was a big inspiration for me going vegan.
It was the vegetarianism first for me, because I grew up in poverty in southeast London on what's called a council estate, which I guess you could sort of say was some sort of ghetto type place, like a lot of high unemployment, a lot of social problems. So sustainability was nothing. I didn't know anything about that really until I learned about like the Amazon rainforest and recycling at school much later, more as a sort of almost a teenager. But I rejected eating meat as a child. So I was actually vegetarian first. But I don't feel like I was respected with vegetarianism. Like I said, I didn't want to eat animals, but I feel like I was still given, like, chocolate mousse was like my favorite dessert as a kid. And I just discovered recently that generally has gelatin in it, as well as egg whites and stuff. But I was like, I don't think anyone was checking labels for me. But as far as I was concerned, as a kid, I wasn't eating meat and I was vegetarian. So that came first, and then sustainability came later for me in life. It's kind of like, the more you know, the more you like. When I find out something, like whether it's that, we're cutting down the rainforest to put in cattle ranches to feed the world's demand for beef and dairy, it's like, for me, I'm like, well, that's not cool. Like, I don't want to cut down the rainforest. So I just then make proactive steps to not do that. But other people just seem to say, I'm going to put the blinkers on. I don't want to know. Don't tell me this, because I might have to change something in my life. God forbid I have to change something. And I don't understand that mentality. It's like, when you do better. That's what I thought. But obviously I've noticed most people, unfortunately, don't seem to have that in them. I don't know why.
Where do you think that comes from for you? Do you think there's that like survival, like you're talking about where you're growing up, like know better, do better, or just like a personality trait maybe?
I don't know. I don't know if it's about survival for me. It just seems logical. Like, when you know better,
right.
you do. When you know you're doing something bad, why do you keep doing it?
Right.
But other people, I just guess it's other people have like a lot more memories and emotional connections to their food, that they feel like, for example, Thanksgiving, we had a vegan Thanksgiving at our house one year. I mean, our Thanksgiving is always vegan.
Right. We hosted and we invited people, and some of the people were vegan and some of them weren't. And then there were some people that came who were not vegan, and then they said, oh, sorry, so-and-so couldn't make it. They just really wanted turkey. They just couldn't think of Thanksgiving without turkey. And I was just like, wow, like, fancy not going to a big event with your partner, like a Thanksgiving dinner, just because there's not turkey. Like, is it really about the turkey? Is it not about the coming together? That's fascinating.
But for some people, it's like, Thanksgiving isn't Thanksgiving unless there's turkey on the table. And
that association is so strong. An ex of mine, it was like a huge argument for us. I was vegan and he wasn't. And I was like, well, if we're hosting a holiday dinner, I'm going to at least have no meat. I want it to be vegetarian. I will cook everything, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, he was like, overwhelmed with anxiety about telling his family. And I was like, I'll tell him. I'm cooking everything.
Yeah, so what's going to taste good?
And tell him to bring this, and this. And it obviously turned out Everyone loved it. I made like this big baked cauliflower that has been reproduced since. Like, it was not a big deal, but I think his anxiety came from, oh, everyone's going to be mad because it's not Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I think when we tell them, come to our warm home and let's play games and talk, they should be okay. But I guess some people can't get past it.
It's true. And I don't know why I don't have that connection to these events in that way. Like, for me, it's, if you can replicate it with a tofurkey or make some sort of like Wellington or something really spectacular, that's a sort of feature. And for me, it's just about the coming together and everyone having a great time. And isn't it a bonus if nobody has to die for it, in my opinion? But yeah, like I said, I've just noticed that. And I think we've all noticed that most people don't have that in them. They're just very set in their ways.
So how do you handle that in your own life? Have you come up with people or friends or family that are like, what the hell are you doing? What's veganism? You're being silly, or, any of that? And if so, how do you handle that?
I think we just put the message out there that we're vegan and we would prefer not to be surrounded by people eating other sentient beings, and most people kind of respect that in our lives. And we have had big family dinners in vegan restaurants, and everyone's on board and eaten something. But we've found that there has to be some give and take. Like, our family, they don't like fake meat. We took them to a really famous vegan diner on a trip to London once, and Ed and I loved the toe fish and chips and thought it was the best thing in the world. Everyone else around the table was quite mortified at how close vegan meat can be to real meat, and it freaked them out. Even though they eat real meat, vegan meat freaked them out. So now we found that actually they prefer just to go to wholesome vegetarian vegan restaurants where you just elevate vegetables. And now we know that that's great, because actually we don't like eating a lot of processed fake meats either. But we thought that they would like it because it was similar to what they usually ate. But then we discovered, no, they prefer the full-on vegan stuff. So we've come to realize what the family like when it comes to vegan food.
That's smart. Yeah.
And then we were able, the last restaurant we went to, they loved it so much. They're talking about going there again when we're in London next. So I think we've kind of found some common ground, found what works for everyone. But there have been teething problems, and people have started to get on board now with like, oh, if Ed and Natasha are coming, like, let's do it vegan, or let's go somewhere that they're comfortable with, which is really nice. And we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, I think that's like what Natasha said. It's listening to family is definitely the hardest. Like with friends, it's quite easy just to be like, lay it down. This is how it is.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if they're a good enough friend, they'll understand. And if they're not, then sometimes, people change and you go your separate ways. But with family, you're stuck with them. Generally, their blood, or they've been in your life for a long time. I think the pivoting point for me would have been our wedding as well. We got married in 2017, and it was a totally.
So you were already vegan, okay?
Yeah, so it was 100% vegan wedding, and for us, like a celebration. We had it in the forest. It was a beautiful site near to where we live in the mountains. And we just knew, my family are big eaters. We just needed lots of really tasty food. So we had different vendors. We had a taco food truck turn up at 9 o'clock at night. So we were like, that's the other thing.
Sounds like a great wedding.
It was really, really fun. And everyone ate really well, like, I've been a chef all my life. So I just wanted it to be sort of a celebration of our love, but also for food, because it's so important to us. Obviously, owning a vegan
part of your love, it seems like.
Yeah, totally. Like, we're both really passionate about eating whole foods, supporting local producers and farmers. So yeah, I think that was sort of like the point where they were like, oh, they're serious about this. It's not like us having vegan options. It was like, if you want to come, the whole thing is going to be
But we were paying for it, and it was our wedding. People can't. And it was like that was the first time that basically we mandated everyone had to eat vegan, family thing. And then it was like, well, you've just done it for 3 days. Like, I think you can do it again, if we go to a restaurant kind of thing. So everyone put up with it. I think they were pleasantly surprised that they liked I think there was like a sesame teriyaki fried tofu canapé thing going around, and I think they were surprised that they actually liked it. They were surprised. So, you know, we just kind of laid it down, and
small wins.
Yeah. And now they tell us, they're like, oh, like Ed's mum's like, I actually prefer the oat milk ice cream to the dairy ice cream. And we're like, yeah.
Do you find, even if they're not vegan, but someone in your life is like, oh, I actually prefer this cream cheese, they like have to tell you? They're like so excited for you to know.
Yeah. And you just have to like really congratulate them.
Like,
and then,
yeah,
say great.
That's great. I love that.
Everyone's on their journey. So like hopefully they're making more conscious decisions. You know, you can't expect them to go vegan overnight, but if they're being more open-minded and, you know, they're understanding and supporting you, then I think that's only a good thing.
Well, I've said this, podcast listeners are like, you've mentioned this before, but I have my best friend since I was 8 years old. She went vegan when we were like 11 or 12, way ahead of the curve, especially since we're in northern Minnesota. You know, everyone's like, what? You know, I grew up hunting and fishing. Like that's what you do in the woods, right? And she would like tell me about it, but she wouldn't pressure me. And she'd go to Dairy Queen with me. And then in college, we went, and, you know, like we were in college in the same city away from our hometown. And I would drive up for deer hunting season and she'd come with me to see family. And once I went vegan, I reflected on how patient and kind she was to me when I wanted to just freak out at my family members that weren't listening. And in that angry vegan phase, I just wanted everyone to be like, hello, I figured it out. Why is no one listening to what I'm saying? This is it. I've got the answer. But I was like, wow, Michelle waited and just let me be on my journey for 20 something years and was just my best friend. So when I'm like mad at people, I actually think of her. I'm like, okay, you just got to trust. You just got to trust.
Yeah.
So Carly, before I went vegan, when I was vegetarian, I would do what I call incremental small steps towards veganism without knowing it. So for example, buying organic free range eggs as opposed to factory farmed eggs. So for me, if I see someone's buying what they consider to be ethical meat and dairy products and eggs, then I think, okay, maybe they're closer to veganism than the person that isn't.
So true. So true.
Do you think that hunting and fishing, like having that connection to your dinner, like seeing it alive and then pulling the trigger and then seeing it dead and preparing it all, the carcass and everything, do you think that is closer to veganism than perhaps going to the supermarket and getting a plastic packaged chicken breast, for example? Do you think it is?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Closer to veganism.
Because I wonder that, because it's like you have that connection to the animal in some way.
I think people should have to do it or see it if they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be gruesome, but I've done process from A to B growing up, right? I remember my dad saying, like, you always think that you got an animal and then blah, 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 blah. And I think that is a different experience than, you know, factory farming at the alarming rates and everything else. So, and I think you'll know from being in Canada as well, but indigenous cultures in the United States have been stripped of everything. And so they lived quite economically and equivocally with the land, taking one animal once in a while. So I think there's a difference in not only the volume, but like you said, the connection, because I can say I've seen what that looks like and I don't want to again, but I know how the food got to be the way it was. And I knew it was an animal.
That's right. And like you said, like if you hunt an animal, then you're more likely to use all of the cuts and everything. Whereas
nothing was wasted up here.
That's right. And if you're going to the grocery store to buy packaged meat, then you can select and say, I'm just going to get the ribeye steak every week. And you're just choosing that part of one animal. And then the next week, it's another part of another animal. And, you know, I do feel that I've tried to analyze it because I think it helps me see people more on a journey towards veganism.
I appreciate you asking that question too, because I use the vegan title. I think it's important to keep using it. That's a whole nother podcast episode because there's a whole lot of discussion around that. But I think there's too much like infighting within the vegan community, because even you asking that question, some vegans would be mad that you asked that question. And that is really stopping growth and stopping anybody from wanting to listen, when that's the reaction. Because I think that's a conversation to have. Oh, is this closer to veganism? Like, I think that's really interesting to consider and to talk about. I appreciate you asking that, because I've had to leave a few Facebook groups that I'm just can't handle the judgment for like vegan spaces. And that's not everyone, of course. There's bad apples in every group. I'm not trying to say anything bad about that community, but there are people that I was in one group in particular, and the one of the questions to get into the group, I've joined them to promote the podcast. And one of the questions to get in was like, would you buy non-vegan products for a family member? And I checked yes. My mom had been sick like the week before, and she wanted, I don't know, mac and cheese or something specific. And she's sick, and I'm gonna go get it for her, and that's what she wants. That's okay for me. She wouldn't ask me to go like buy a steak, that kind of thing. And I got a personal message from one of the people that ran the group that was like this long. That was just like, you're terrible. You're not practicing veganism. That's not the right answer. You're a fraud. And I think I actually responded, haha, I'm leaving the group now.
Wow.
Yeah.
We need more plant-curious people, and we need to be, like I said, it comes down to listening to people and accepting that everyone's on their own journey and things. Like, I sometimes post stories on Instagram or something, and you can hide hashtags, and I'll throw in some random ones like barbecue or things that like might hit different groups. Because if I'm just preaching to the choir and put in vegan and vegan baking and all these things,
right,
it's going to hit the same algorithm. Whereas I sort of plant some little seeds, then maybe someone else is going to come to our page that might be like, wow, I didn't even know that you could make a cake vegan by using this alternative product.
And I think also, like were you saying about, vegans might be mad with me for even asking that question and discussing hunting on the podcast. But then it's like, we identify as vegan, and we live a lifestyle where we reduce or have eliminated the harm and suffering of other living beings as much as possible. Now, I know other people that use the word vegan who buy puppies from puppy breeders, who go horse riding, who eat honey, who do lots of things that I could point the finger at and say, who are you to call yourself vegan? You're not doing that and the other. You should be doing this, that, and the other. But I'm not going to, because I'm like, if they identify as vegan, that means that as much as possible in their control, in their life, they've eliminated a lot of meat, dairy, whatever reason they're using that label vegan. They've obviously done a whole lot more than most people. I don't want to put them down for it. I'd love to have conversations with them in a kind way, in an open way that would help maybe navigate them to the next step. But I'm not going to go on a Facebook group, and I don't know how effective any of these Facebook groups are at actually encouraging people to go vegan or helping people when all they do is just attack each other. Really?
I'm gonna take the sound bite of the last minute, and if any group starts arguing, I'm just gonna post that. Listen to this. Like, that's because you're so right. You're so right that it's just, why would I want to put someone down who's also identifying in a way that I see the world? It was just wild to me. I'm curious, as you talked about, you've said a couple times, Ed, that you've been, like a chef your whole life. So how was that transitioning then to vegan, and what did that mean for like, how did that totally change your world?
Yeah, it was relatively quick when I made the personal decision to go vegan. I was working at a farm to table restaurant in Whistler, BC, where we are, and very close with the head chef. I was the sous chef, so I had a lot of control within the kitchen and the restaurant in decisions with regards to staffing, the menu, purchasing. I would run the kitchen when he was, away traveling or whatever.
Right.
I was very lucky in the sense that, again, I felt like he listened to the decisions I was making. So even with the animal-based dishes, a lot of the garnish was vegan. And it was only actually about a year that I worked there when I called myself a vegan from that point to opening our bakery.
Oh, wow.
So
you moved quickly.
It wasn't a long-term thing. We'd already started BReD in 2016 as like a side hustle within the restaurant, as I was sort of renting the kitchen. And that was just a side thing, making the bread, getting a bit of a name for ourselves within Facebook. And then the community loved it and were basically asking us to open a bakery. So the transition period from that point, from the restaurant then saying, this has got so big, we need our sous chef back, closing that down. And then we sold our place. We had a little house in the UK that we sold that and put all of that money plus a bunch more that we borrowed into opening BReD as it is now. And that was 5 years ago.
I love that sometimes the universe just like opens up when you're just supposed to be on that path kind of thing. I know it's corny, but it feels like that, right? You like made this decision and it was like, oh, what about this? What about this?
Totally. Yeah, I don't think the community knew that it was going to be a vegan bakery. They just loved the sourdough. They were like, we can get this once.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. That was the hook. It was like, we get it once a week. We want it 5 or 6 days a week. So we were like, okay, we saw a gap in the market for the population that live in Whistler. There was very few bakeries and no one other vegan business, 100% vegan. We have a lot of restaurants here with vegan options, but there's only, apart from us, one juice bar. There's, the classic, they're gluten-free. They make juices and smoothies and
it's very different to
energy balls and things like that,
right.
Whereas for us it was sourdough, organic sourdough, vegan baking, and really amazing locally roasted coffee. So
we're so pleased that BReD is inherently vegan, because it's like a gateway food for us, because it's like people, they like the bread, they come in for the bread, but then they see all the other stuff and then they buy it. And then they go, oh, I really like these cinnamon buns. I really like these cookies. And then eventually at some point someone tells them, or they realize, is it vegan? Yeah, you've just been eating loads of vegan food. Oh,
we had a customer.
Pretty good.
We had a customer recently, actually. It was really cool. She came in and there's now a trust, which takes a little bit of time within your community to form. But she was like, she walked in, she was like, everything here is good. So she's like, anything new that we put on the menu, we are always trying to improve and move with the seasons. She was like, I know it's going to be good. So she just like bought something just on a whim. She was just like, wouldn't normally go for like a baked cheesecake, for example. But she's like, she just had trust in us that we tested it, made sure it was good before it gets to the customer. So that was really nice.
Baked cheesecake. Can we pause on, I know that was a beautiful story you just told, but baked cheesecake, can we talk about these baked goods, please?
And it's gluten-free. So it's gluten-free oats, almonds, coconut sugar, a little bit of organic coconut oil as the base, and then a cashew and coconut cream, and then a strawberry jam jelly on top. And then we garnish it with fresh strawberries, toasted almonds, and Thai basil. And that's the other thing I love that comes from my chef background. It's like, sometimes I have that whole like imposter syndrome where I was a trained chef and I've kind of moved into a professional baker. And I'm just going to take all that knowledge of being a chef and textures and focusing on a few ingredients, and instead of making it too complicated.
It's wild that he has imposter syndrome. He's been in kitchens his whole life. He's never worked any other type of job. And he has imposter syndrome.
Our minds are crazy places.
Just because you see people that you aspire to be are the top bakers around the world. And they've always been in that industry. They trained in France or whatever. Like I've had a lot of training, worked in Michelin star restaurants, but only done a small amount on the pastry section.
Right.
I was very sort of in the main kitchen. But anyway, I'm doing okay. I get by, it's always learning. That's the thing. I feel like self-development is the key.
Hey there, it's me. If you're digging this conversation so far around conscious living in this episode and you're feeling inspired to make change, that's literally why I'm here. If you want sustainable ways to be sustainable, you hear eco-friendly or green and wonder if you're doing it right, You want to make your diet more earth-friendly by going vegan. You want to live a more connected life, but you're not even sure what that means. No judgment. It is possible to feel excited about making changes, to make a difference in the world every single day with your choices, to go vegan and stay vegan without feeling like you're missing anything, or to learn how to make good choices for the planet without feeling stressed. I help folks who are ready to make changes in their life that support their health and the world around them through supportive coaching, practical education, and steps that make you enjoy the process. If that's you, email me at consciouslycarly@gmail.com and let's chat. Back to the episode.
Hi there, my name is Amy Fagan, and I want to talk for just a second about my sustainability podcast called Grounded in Maine Podcast. I'm passionate about sustainability, and I'm dedicated to promoting its importance through this weekly podcast. I'm a student of life, and I love learning about people's stories. Do you have a story about sustainability? I'm curious to learn about you too. Please follow me on Instagram at Grounded in Maine Podcast and find my podcast wherever you listen.
Yeah. That's back to that beginning question, right? The clueless to consciousness, that room for growth, that ability to seek more, but also being content with where you're at too. I get caught in that forgetting to be present because I'm like, but then this and 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 this as well.
And surrounding yourself with people, like being married to Tash, she is the queen of self-development. Like she never stops. Like, I mean, we're both very, very busy, but this lady is like podcasts, I've read this article, I'm doing this, I'm sending this person email. So I think surrounding,
we should be friends.
yeah, totally. With people like that, then just gives you more drive.
Yeah.
Aggressive self-development, I call it. Yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah. Be aggressive.
I'm going to start saying that too.
Yeah, seriously.
That's so funny.
People go, what time do you get up in the morning? And I go, 5 o'clock. And they go, oh my God, how can you get up that early? I go, it's best time of the day. Got all the time to yourself. It's peaceful. It's quiet. So much done. If you get up at 5 a.m., you get so much more done with your day. If I get up at 8 o'clock on like a day off, I'm like, I've wasted half the day. I'm not going to get.
And then you feel like you're like, no matter what, I know I got this, and this done already. So when you get up early, that is a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So how has it been then transitioning to BReD as a side hustle to your life? And now you have a cookbook coming out.
Yes.
Both of your eyes just got big and you both paused for listeners that were like, oh, we're fine. Everything's fine.
Don't prepare yourself for opening a food and beverage business for the first time. It takes a lot of energy. Like, you can look at our Instagram video and we're playing nice tunes and we're like edge shaping the dough and it's really idyllic. And we do love what we do, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. So thank God we love what we do, because I think some people think like, oh, that's really cute. Look at this cute bakery.
Like,
and
they just make bread and
yeah, but reality check, like there's a lot of dishes to be done. There's a lot of like hard work that has to go on. You know, there's a lot of, you have to be really on top of your finances. You have to get comfortable with all these different aspects. For us, it's been learning about bookkeeping and finances. It's been about I know it's not
that would be where I don't want to aggressively self-develop. I'm like, someone else can do that, right?
Totally. Like having policies for your company, like human resources, like looking after your people, managing.
You're in charge of other people now, or not in charge of and responsible for their livelihoods.
But I think you summed it up there. Like, there's some things that you don't want to do. If you don't want to do them, find someone that can do it better than you. Like, work to your strengths is also is key, because you need to earn money. You need to be, like positive in that sense. Like, some people are just like, oh, you're B Corp, so we give away a portion of our revenue and things like that. But we still need to make money. We need to pay people a wage. But then what we found is, let's find a really good bookkeeper and an accountant, so they might be expensive, but if they're really good at what they do, then they'll help us make more money.
And you would spend quadruple the time trying to do what they're doing, and time is money when you own a business.
That's right. And I meet other business owners and they'll tell me like, I just need to get around to doing my books. I'm like, what are you doing them for? You're in the restaurant every day. Like, pay someone to do it. And they're like, oh no, I like to do it all myself. I'm just like, no.
Oh.
You can't afford to be spreading yourself that thin, because you end up nothing that well. So if you want to make the best bread in the world, or you want to give the best service in the world, then focus on those things. But it's been a journey for us to get there. Like it hasn't been easy.
Yeah, we didn't know this straight away. You learn from failing.
Right.
You don't know if you're a good accountant or a bad accountant until you realize you have a bad accountant. Like
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of learning.
They don't come with Yelp reviews, right?
Don't
Accountants.
get me started on Yelp. Just the name Yelp. It sounds like pain. Yelp. I mean, a dog yelps if you stand on its tail. Like Yelp.
Don't get me started on Yelp, she says.
Yeah.
Honestly,
we're all about Google reviews.
We're all about
Google reviews. Got it.
Happy cow, even better. But Yelp. No, thank you.
It is true. It's not a like, this is going to be a fun experience kind of word, is it?
No.
It's not. It's the worst name for a review site. It should be called Yay or something instead of Yelp.
You heard it here first, folks. We are starting the petition to move Yelp from Yelp to Yay. Yay! Another review on Yay. It is more fun.
It is. People are so trigger happy to go straight onto these review platforms if they think they've had a bad experience. But when they have a really good experience, which I'm happy to say is most of the time, they forget to put that out there.
I try and be really intentional about that because it is tough.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, if somebody has left a negative review, if you click on their profile, you'll see they've left loads of other places negative reviews. And it's just a shame that people are happy to tell the world about a bad thing, but not happy to tell the world about a good thing. So if you've been to any great restaurants or businesses, what have you, then why not share the love and spread the good energy out there rather than just kind of like expecting everyone to listen to your, sad story.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially in terms of everyone's like, well, I wish I had more money to support businesses I love or whatever. I'm like, you don't have to. If you share my Instagram story talking about my coaching services, that's helpful. And that took you 3 seconds. If you leave a Google review, like that actually can make someone else go to that restaurant, and that took you a minute and a half.
Right.
There are things you can do to support people and their
and if you've had a negative experience, just write to them directly.
Yes.
Just email them and say, hey guys, I just want to give you some constructive feedback that when I came in, I didn't like the demeanor, I didn't like the way I was spoken to, didn't enjoy this product, and then they can rectify and actually do something about it.
And learn.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like sometimes it's just like, what are you trying to do? We're like a family business. We're trying every day. If you just told us in the instance or send us an email, maybe we can send you a gift card or we can apologize then, rather than just trying to put people off coming to your business. So, yeah, I think we just could be a bit more positive in that sense.
Yeah. And it contributes, like you said, like put more positivity out there. Like that contributes. I totally believe in that, contributing to the energy. Right? What are we focusing on in our brains? Is it the negative experience or the positive?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And especially with hospitality, a lot of businesses are struggling. I just discovered that a vegetarian restaurant in Vancouver has resorted now, after probably being in business for 10 years, they've now added meat onto their menu, which all the vegans and vegetarians are, devastated about. And
weird direction to head.
Very weird direction, but they're panicking and they're saying we need to make our menu more inclusive and invite our omnivorous friends in. And, it's very controversial. as a vegan owner and operator of a business, there's just no way I could ever go down that route. It's like, there's got to be a way. But for all the vegans and vegetarians out there, it's like, were you supporting this business? Like, what were you doing? Them, keep them successful, and if they feel like they've got to resort to that, they must be doing quite badly. And I don't know if it's going to get any, because they've God bless them, they've just alienated most of their customers, so they're going to have to work double hard to find a whole new audience that want to come and support them. So I don't think it's a great business decision on any level, but the fact that they felt that they had to do that is tragic, but it's just a reminder, like, people have got so many options now in different restaurants. A lot of vegans will go to, let's just say, KFC, have a new vegan something. Awesome. But if there's a vegan restaurant like just a few doors away, like, why not
Right.
them? Like, because their ethics are gonna help the world a lot more. Because I don't know if people realize this, Katrina Fox she used to work for Forbes. She's a vegan journalist, actually, and she's interviewed these people at KFC and other fast food places when they've brought plant-based options on the menu. They actually said that it increased the sales of meat products, because if you've got a whole family and one of you's vegan, and then before you'd have to say, well, we all have to go to the vegan restaurant because this vegan person can't get at this, meat restaurant. But now, because the meat restaurants generally have vegan options, now the whole family go to the meat restaurant. So having the vegan options brings in more sales of all products. And I think that's very interesting, and something that not a lot of people realize, that sales of meat go up when the restaurants put on vegan and vegetarian options. So it's just good to know.
What a double-edged sword too, right? Like it's one of those things, a reminder that we are in late stage capitalism. So we are not able to be perfect in an imperfect world. And that is a reminder I know I've needed along this journey and living more consciously a lot. Because when I first started, I mean, that's part of the reason I started this podcast, is I realized it just didn't feel like there was as much approachable content and conversations around this stuff that I was looking for. Because when I first started looking at sustainability, I was like, oh, so to be sustainable, I have to fit all my year's trash in one jar. And if I can't do that, then I suck. Like, that's how the internet made me feel.
Yeah.
And God bless to the people who can do that. But like, that's not something I can do. But I can do a lot of other stuff, right? So how is sustainability a part of BReD and your mission?
We do a lot, don't we?
We do. I mean, we're very proud that we're now B Corp-certified, which was
amazing.
a massive achievement for such a small business.
Yeah.
And again, Natasha's like baby. She owned that.
Getting the certification, but it's because we could have got a vegan certification, but the problem with that is, I feel that all that says is we don't use meat, eggs, dairy, fish. We don't use any of that. But actually what we do is way more than that. We use organic ingredients. For example, all the wheat that we source, it's organic. So the farms that grow the wheat don't spray Roundup, which is glyphosate, which is known to be incredibly toxic. It gets into the waterways, and there's just a buildup of it in the ecosystems and in our own bodies, and causing a lot of health problems. But there isn't enough research done into it. There isn't the funding there, because the companies that are spraying all this stuff are very powerful and have a lot of money. But it is thought to be quite a dangerous, toxic chemical. And it's being sprayed all over the world. People think it's just in America, but no, they used it in Europe. They use it in Canada. They use it in many places around the world. So we opt for organic flour. That is 3 times more expensive than the non-organic flour. But we feel that that's the vegan choice, because these pesticides, they kill insects, they kill animals that eat the insects. When you have a build-up, they're probably killing us, giving us
the people that work there are not doing
they're
great.
Really dangerous sprays, and they probably end up lung problems, heart problems, etc. So using organic, sourcing locally as much as possible. We support all our local farmers as much as we can. We trade BReD for produce a lot of the time as well, because the farmers love the BReD and we love their fresh produce. So we have a really nice kind of exchange that goes on with a lot of our local growers. And then we strive for zero food waste, so nothing gets wasted.
So the other thing is
we donate.
We donate. Yeah, I mean, the B Corp certification also means we look after our staff. We're very much pay a livable wage, have health benefits, and then every coffee that we sell, we plant a tree in sub-Saharan Africa. So we really go beyond what we need to, in a way. We like you said, all these things, it's an umbrella of things we're always trying to improve and make the bakery as sustainable as possible, really, and letting our customers know that if they spend, they buy their coffee with us over one of these big companies, they're doing a lot more than just buying a coffee. They're supporting the local economy, and also, planting trees in sub-Saharan Africa to counterbalance, the packaging that we're using, even though it's 100% compostable.
And it's also the home of coffee. It originates from sub-Saharan Africa, so it's nice to pay it back to those guys. And actually, I just calculated that we've donated around $20,000 in total to animal and environmental, social sustainability causes since we've been in business. So that's quite a significant contribution for a mom and pop shop over. And we try to educate our audience, our customers, our mailing list, our Instagram followers on all the things that we do and inspire people to live a life like this. For example, today, on the day that we're recording this show, we were out foraging wild blackberries that we can use in our walnut sticky buns with blackberry jam that we have at the bakery. Recipes also in our upcoming cookbook. And this is awesome because blackberries are an invasive species in the Northwest. So us foragers, great, green light, go hack it all down and get all the berries and eat them all. And don't feel bad. No one's going to stop us because we're doing the environment a favor by getting rid of this invasive species that just happens to taste delicious.
Delicious.
Yeah.
What was the move from going to having the restaurant to we've got to put out a cookbook? That feels like a whole nother journey.
Yeah.
The publisher came to us.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, what a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think what the catalyst was, we'd been open for almost a year. We were 1 week short of a year when March 2020 came along and the government said, shut all the businesses down, stay at home, big lockdown for COVID. So we lost all our staff, but within 24 hours overnight, we actually launched all of our products on an online shop. So we started e-commerce, and so we shut down on the Sunday. On the Monday, we were taking orders through our website for BReD, and Ed and I ran it, just the two of us, once a week. There were no guidelines on what to do during the pandemic with a business at this point. So we just scheduled everyone with a 5-minute appointment. So it'd be like 11:05, come and pick up your order. And next person 11:10. And
that's amazing.
It was crazy. It was so crazy. And then we had this table at the front of the bakery, and I'd sanitize it, put the order on, and I'd run back 10-foot distance and then be like, thanks so much. And then the next one. And it was kind of crazy. And a lot of other businesses just totally closed until they were told what. So because we reacted so quickly, we got featured in Forbes magazine, and we also won a Small Business BC award as Youth Entrepreneur of the Year. So they awarded that to us in 2021 because of our quick pivot in 2020. And then from that, we got some media stuff. We were on some podcasts talking about our pivot. Everyone was talking about the pivot, that word.
I saw some of your interviews from that time, and I was like, oh, wow, they were getting a lot of coverage in 2020, during the pandemic.
Online shop and started taking orders the next day. And so then Penguin, an editor, heard us on a show. She didn't even know which show it was. We were on loads of stuff. And then they wrote to us and said, would you like to write a cookbook on vegan sourdough baking? But at this point, we'd lost our team, we'd reopened, and we had no staff, and we were borrowing people from all sorts of places. And
you were
Ed was working from 4 a.m. till 7 p.m. It was horrible. And I'm like, I get this email, do you want to write a book? And at the time, I'm just like, if I'd gone to Ed at that particular time, he's mega overworked, and be like, yeah, do you think you've got time to write a book?
This is the thing that makes him snap.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I had to pick my moment. So I think I left it a couple of weeks and was like, oh yeah, and just kind of casually mentioned Penguin Random House. We're wondering if we'd like to write a vegan sourdough book, and we're sort of
pressure. Just think about it. No big deal.
Pressure, just kind of how funny is that? As if we've got time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was like, we have to say yes. It was an instant yes. I wouldn't call myself a big reader. I love reading cookbooks and stuff, and the odd book when we go traveling or on holiday and stuff. But Penguin for me, like I grew up with that's definitely a publisher that I know about, and a lot of people
Same.
do.
Yeah, a lot of
And
kids'
I was like,
books.
this is huge. Like if it was a publisher, that I'd be like, oh, they're new, they just want to start getting into cookbooks. But I'm like, Penguin is huge. And also
they
kind
reached out to you.
they came to us. There's loads of vegan cookbooks, but actually there's not many vegan baking books, or not of that sort. There's muffins and brownies and simple cookies and things like that, but there's nothing like we wanted. When we talked about it, we were like, we want to make this approachable. I don't want to go like mega fine dining, like you need all this like expensive equipment. I wanted to have, like, obviously the foundation is sourdough, but we just wanted a book that was really nice cakes and cookies and small breads, like 100 recipes, but all sorts of things, for special occasions, festive times. So we really sort of brainstormed a book that we would love as big home cooks and foodies, I guess, something that would be good for an beginner, intermediate, or advanced baker, something you can grow into, something that, I was really stoked to take on this project and somehow make it work. I mean, they gave us a year, which seems like a lot, but then when you're talking about like
running a business,
but then developing these recipes, testing the recipes, 2 recipes a week is quite intense, especially at certain points of the year where Christmas, no chance, like I have 0 free time. So it actually became 3 recipes per week. Then we had to shoot the recipes, and a lot of it, I wanted to do as much as possible with natural light. So it was fun, and I would definitely love the opportunity to do it again because we've learned from it. But that would all depend on how well this first book goes.
Right. Well, I'm excited. I think I need to get my hands on it because I've always considered myself, or at least this is what I say, is that I'm more of a cook than a baker, which I think a lot of people say because you're probably just like internally rolling your eyes at what I'm about to say already. I'm just like, but cooking, you can just like keep adding and things will work out. And baking is a science and it stresses me out.
Remember earlier in the show that I said, I have that imposter syndrome and stuff. I still feel like that.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of leeway within baking. Certain people are just like, it has to be like, for me, the best way is get a set of digital scales because you can't go wrong. If you have, like, I know, like the Americans, I've been
told that before, and I haven't done it, but I probably should.
That will definitely like make it a lot more successful. Like, I almost wanted to say to the publisher, can we sell a simple set of digital scales because like cups,
promotional item.
But we have cup measurements in the book, so we do have it in grams and
they made us
cups
put them in there
because it has to be. They do.
Because they're like, Americans won't understand.
Yeah.
Basically, they said if you don't have cups, you're going to get like 1-star reviews on Amazon. You have to have cups. And we were like, no, but it's baking. Like, it has to be precise. Like, a cup is a volume. It's not a weight. It's very different. And, one person's cup, people just shove the cup in the flour and they don't even check if it's level.
Like bake it down or...
Yeah, do you pack it down? Is it heaped? Like, you could do 2 cups of flour. They could be totally different weights. So we were very concerned about that. And we sort of had a lot of back and forth with the publisher in the beginning. And then I went into cups, pounds, and kilos, because then is it imperial or metric? We wanted the book to appeal to everyone around the world, obviously, that can speak English, although I don't know if it's translated into other languages. That would be cool. But we were like, we want Americans, we want Canadians, we want Brits, Aussies, whoever that, can read the book to use it. And then eventually the editor got back to me and said, this is a bit overkill. Can you just choose like kilos or pounds? I was like, oh my God, okay. So there was a lot.
That would be me. I'd be like, but I want everyone to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every measurement that exists, people can find it in our book.
But if you've got digi-scales, then it really doesn't matter because you just put it in the mode of whatever the recipe is. So if it's pounds, just switch it to pounds and ounces. And if it's kilos, switch it to kilos and grams.
Okay, I'll get a digital scale. That's the big takeaway from this episode, everybody.
Yes.
But also it's less dishes in a way because you can just have the bowl on the scale and then you're just adding Do it.
Okay, that's the final tipping point for me. Dishes is my least favorite chore. You got me.
Yes.
I live in a tiny home with a sink like as big as my head, so it's such a chore. You got me. That's it. That's the selling point.
Excellent.
I will be getting a DigiScale. I was just going to ask if either of you had anything to share that I haven't given you space to do so.
I was just going to say, like, we really enjoyed writing the cookbook. Like, it's our way of being able to share the bakery. Like, we're never going to franchise our bakery. Like, I urge anyone listening, if they're thinking of coming to British Columbia, come and see us in Whistler. It's a beautiful place to come.
I've never been. I would love to. It's been on my list for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we were supposed to come here for 6 months and we've lived here for 10 years now.
Oops.
So, you know, it's definitely got a hold on people. And come and see us, you know, you get a warm loaf of bread. That's one of our USPs, is that everything is baked fresh in the morning. It's 100% vegan, obviously. But then if you can't visit us for whatever reason, then this is our way of sharing our bakery with the world, because there's loads of classics in there. Like, I think half of the book is things that we've made in the bakery: carrot cake, cinnamon buns, you know, cookies, certain breads that we've done that are classic bread recipes. And then there's a lot of other fun recipes that we're not able to do for, you know, we don't have an extraction, so we can't do donuts. But there's a really like chai pumpkin donut recipe in there with a cranberry and raspberry jam that I'm definitely craving right now.
I'm so hungry. I always end up doing interviews when I'm hungry with people that talk about vegan food.
Yeah.
There's a zero waste chapter in there as well for people that have sourdough discard, because you have to feed your starter often. And
I've killed 2 sourdough starters in my life so far. It's rough.
Well, we've got a guide in the book
Third
at the
time
start.
lucky.
Yeah, third time, you know, make your own. And then there's like maintenance, so how you can, you know, have the best chance to keep it and work with your schedule. I think that's key. It's not thinking you have to make bread every day. You can make bread once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Right.
Just keep it in the fridge and then just bring it out, give her a couple of feeds, and you'll be ready to go.
And that was the final straw when someone told me I needed a digital scale, was when I killed another sourdough starter. And they're like, well, do you have a digital scale? And I was like, not yet.
Not yet.
I really like the discard recipes, because things like waffles and
my favorite food,
pancakes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with crumpets, but it's similar to an English muffin. Holes inside, and you do them in a pan. They're really good. So there's a lot of like tasty things that are fairly simple recipes to follow that you can use your discard with. So if you don't want to commit to making a whole loaf of bread, that's really cool. But I was just going to say that we spoke earlier in the show about the infighting between vegans, and obviously there's debates between vegans and non-vegans, but you can cut through all of that crap when you give someone something delicious to eat, because somebody can stand there and say, I'm a hunter, I love killing animals, and whatever they want to say. But if I give you a vegan cookie or cake or cinnamon bun or a slice of sourdough bread and you think that's delicious, you'll want to eat it again, no matter what your political, religious or worldviews are. You just want to eat that again. So I feel like baking is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Why everyone needs to go and buy this book.
That's so true, because I have, you know, if I have a get together or a party or anything, I always serve just vegan food, and everyone's always like, wow, this is so good. And I'm like, ha, you know, like, it's just like, that's the thing. It can be the people that are surprised. It's so fun. So everyone should go buy this new cookbook and impress your non-vegan friends and your vegan friends, of course.
Totally. So yes, it's coming out actually November 7th, but it's available to pre-order now. So you can just search it on Google, or you can head to our website, which is edsbread.com, just spelled EDSBRED.com. So we missed out the A just because.
Bread spelt like Ed. Yeah. That was the idea.
I make the bread.
I love a good rhyme.
Yeah.
I appreciate.
Hit us up on Instagram as well, because we try and sort of post a lot of tutorials and, you know, do Q&As on there and things like that. So Eds_bread.
I love that. I will have all of the ways people can get in touch with you in the show notes so people can follow along as your Ed's BReD journey unfolds.
Oh, thank you so much, Carly.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode of Consciously Clueless, and for that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or tag me and share in social media. Share this episode with others who may be interested in this topic. To get more resources, influence on topics covered, and bonus content, join the Consciously Clueless community over on Patreon at patreon.com/consciouslycarly. And don't forget, if you need help living more consciously, let's work together. Email me today. See you next Wednesday for a new episode.